You've seen pictures of the Benagil Cave. You know this is a world-famous place and the most actually photographed place in Portugal. So if you are there, and especially if you're in the south of Portugal, you're definitely going to want to make this trip. And it is accessible by water only. So to do that, you need to start researching all the different options for how to be able to get there. And there are many. So let's get started.
For us, it started with looking at the different vessels that were available and choosing which was the right boat size for us. There's a few different options. It starts with kayaks or the SUPs, the stand-up paddle boards. Well, pretty quickly we knew that wasn't for us. So the next option up is the small boats, and there's basically three kinds of small boats that are available. One would be called the RIB. You'll see it written that way a lot, RIB, but it stands for Rigid Inflatable Boat. And the other one is speedboats and jetboats. Now, frankly, it wasn't what we were looking for. We wanted something a little more comfortable and leisurely. The biggest boats that, as a practical matter, can get into, especially Benagil Cave, would be the catamaran type boats. And that's what we chose, a catamaran. Now, there is one other option, which if money is not an issue, the private charters, right? So when we looked at all those different options, we chose a catamaran tour. The next piece is looking at the itinerary. Where do you want to go? Where do you want to start from? And what do you want to see when you go? So we opted for what's known as the Dolphins and Caves tour. Well, I'm going to talk right now about departure point. When you're looking at going to Benagil Cave, there are probably about 6 major departure points that you can choose from. The one that's closest to the cave itself is Benagil Beach.
As you can see here, the white arrow shows the path that the kayakers, SUP riders, and swimmers take when they try to go from the beach to the cave entrance. And you might also note that on the top right, you see a little black hole. That's actually the top of the cave. You can walk up and look down into the Benagil Cave. So you can see just how close the beach is. It's about 200 meters from the beach to the cave. And then on a boat tour coming from the west, you see the opening to the cave, and then just as you pass the cave, immediately it opens up and you see the beach. Like so many of the beaches, this one is small, but oh my, is it beautiful.
Used to be, people would actually try to swim from Benagil Beach into the cave, but you should know that you no longer are allowed to go into the cave unless you're with a licensed operators, and individuals cannot swim into the cave anymore. There's heavy fines if you do that. Same with kayaks and SUPs, you can't go in there alone. As you're heading to the east, the next closest option would be the one that's about 15 minutes by car away from there, and that one's called Carvoeiro. And there are a lot of tours that operate from there. But unlike the Benagil Beach area, the marina at Carvoeiro has better parking, there's restaurants there, there's more varied tour options that you can choose, and those tour options get to see a little bit more of the sights because you're farther away, including the very famous Marina Beach as you go by from Carvoeiro to Benagil. A little farther out east is Portimão. Portimão is about a 25 or 30-minute car drive east of Benagil. And then to the east, the farthest point out where you can find plenty of tours is Lagos. Lagos is one of the most popular cities in the Algarve for tourists. And it's about a 45-minute car drive from Lagos to Benagil. So those are the options to the east of Benagil. And if you're staying in the Algarve east, you're probably focused on those options. On the other side, people who focus on the west may want to look at the west options. The farthest out from Benagil is Faro, known as the capital of the Algarve district. Faro is about 55 minutes to an hour car drive west of Benagil. But if you don't want to be as far off as Faro, the next stop would be a place called Vila Moura. And Vila Moura is about 45 minutes to the west of Benagil. The next stop closer to the west is Albufeira. And Albufeira is where we were, so this was an easy choice for us.
Yeah, it was a fun place even while we were waiting for our catamaran to be ready. It was just a lovely stroll. The architecture is modern and very original and very cool to see. And the stroll along the props, and it was very, very pleasant.
The next thing you want to choose is when to do it. In particular, about when to do it is what time of day. And the most important part about choosing the time of day is to check the tide schedule. This is something we didn't do, and we got lucky, not having done it. The reason you want to check it is that many of the caves become inaccessible as the tide rises.
And we were especially lucky because while there could have been a high tide situation, we got lucky that there wasn't. Another advantage to this was later in the day is the light situation. That one of the great things about this particular cave is that it's the only one actually that has this famous hole on top, which means the sunlight gets to come in. And the time of day that we were there, you're going to see pictures. It was absolutely gorgeous. It was so beautifully lit, and you don't get that kind of advantage in the morning, even though the morning comes with advantages of its own. But in terms of that, it's a late in the day thing, and we were very fortunate to get that. Also, we were there in April, so we were there before the really high tourist seasons. I think there were maybe at the most 20 people on it, so it was still very quiet and peaceful and not crowded by any means.
One time of day that you definitely want to avoid would be the middle of the
Noon.
day. Yeah, the noontime hour. That's kind of peak tourist time. All the people have slept in late, but don't want to get their tour done early. That's when they try to go. Also, in the middle of the day, you tend to get the roughest seas. The sun is the hottest of the day. It just,
Yeah.
Don't go with the flow on this one. It's not the best time of day.
Yeah, and we don't 8 a.m. very well. So for us, the later in the day was
True.
kind of the thing to do. And as I said, it worked out as well as it possibly could have.
Those are kind of the most important factors that went in for us to make our choice. And as I said, we chose a 2.5-hour catamaran dolphins and caves tour using the AlgarExperience. So let's talk now a little bit about what the actual experience was like now that we finally had decided. Well, first, I should mention that for AlgarExperience, we were able to buy our tickets online. That was nice.
So once we got on the boats, next thing was to find some seats. And so we got up to the front. The seats, first of all, were really, really comfortable, nice and cushy. They had tall backs, so it was a very comfortable ride. It was practically like sitting on your living room comfy seat. It was great. As mentioned before, because there were so few people on our catamaran, it wasn't such a big situation to try to find seats where you could see everything. But still, we chose seats that were along the side, so we had the most unobstructed views. It was great because we were on the side where when we were traveling, we could see all of the caves and everything on the side that we were on, and it was absolutely an eyeful. It was unbelievable.
Before we get to our next point, I just want to say for a second, if you're getting some serious ideas about your own trip for Portugal, and if this is helping you make your choices about a tour for the Benagil Cave and the Algarve coast, do us a favor, hit the subscribe button and ring the bell, drop us a comment, tell us what your plan is, whatever it can be. We'd love to have your interaction. It doesn't cost you anything, and it really helps us and our channel out. Some of the famous beaches we saw with the São Rafael area, the Sonora de Rocha area. We saw the Arc de Triomphe, the Captain's Cave, where sometimes known as the Smuggler's Cave. We saw the Praia de Submarino, which is really cool. It was a lot of fun when they were playing. We're talking about music. They're playing Yellow Submarine as we circle around a rock formation that looked just like the submarine. The captain and their crew would point out to us various fossil formations in the cliffs.
On this first part, you can see some white points. These white points are fossils of seashells, because all of this part here that we are seeing was the bottom of the sea in the past.
It was just a fascinating and beautiful, beautiful ride.
Full ride. It was way beyond simply going to see the Benagil Cave. I don't want you to think that that was the only thing to see. It was the whole, all along and it was incredible.
Finally, we reached the inside and it was just mind-blowing.
It was gorgeous.
Mind-blowing. One of the things that surprised me, it's not enormous. It's like being, I think it's even referred to sometimes as nature's cathedral.
But it was an intimate space, the way our really great captain was able to, as close as he could get to the walls, we could really get a sense for what the space was.
Really enjoyed that moment.
So to wrap it all up, we were really happy with the tour that we took. We thought that what we ended up spending, which was the cost of the tickets, maybe a little bit more. I know we took like a $5 bolt back, and I think we might have had a little bite to eat. We spent about $85, and we very much felt that we got our money's worth.
By the way, If you're curious about how much we spent for our entire month in Portugal, check out this video, it's a review, and see exactly how we spent a month in Portugal for under $3,000.